Hello, welcome to the People Society discussion. My name is Mo Triplet. Today we will honor and remember our brother, 20-year-old Donovan Lewis, who was killed on August 30th, 2022, when a Columbus, Ohio police officer entered his bedroom and fired a gun. Donovan was in his bed and unarmed. Right now, we're going to bring Donovan's mother, Miss Rebecca Duran, into the studio. Hello. I think you have to turn your camera on. Uh-oh, she's gone, y'all. Give her a minute. She'll be right back. All right, that was quick. She came back quick. Okay, there she goes.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. How you doing?
I'm okay.
All right, welcome to the People Society. First, I want to say on behalf of the People Society, sorry for your loss, and I hope that today's conversation in some way helps you to honor Donovan's life and legacy. So let's jump right in and I'll ask you some questions. Um, Tell us what type of young man Donovan was and what types of things he liked to do. And did he leave a family behind?
Hang on one second. It's the connection is real bad. I think it's because it's about the storm. Can
Okay,
you
no
hear me
worries.
okay now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Um, Donovan was um, a forever jokester, prankster. Um, Definitely loved to laugh. Um, I love music. That was his thing.
Playing, listening, making, or playing?
Both.
Oh,
Both.
okay. So he made music. Okay. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. He loved to listen and make it. He did a lot of writing. He kept a journal with him, like a notebook all the time. Unfortunately, that was stolen out of his apartment, so I don't know where that ended up. But um, yeah, always writing something.
Was he in the sports? What kind of things he like to do? Bowling, going out
Very,
to, you know.
very much into sports. Basketball was his favorite, and football was a close second. He played in high school. If you could, if he wasn't at home, he was on a court playing basketball somewhere.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, yeah. Um, Tell us about his personal life, his family, and everything.
Um, Donovan is one of six of my children and one of two of his father's, one of three of his father's children. And um, big family, very, very, very into family. That um, he was very supportive. Some of my favorite pictures of Donovan are him going to support his youngest brother at wrestling and soccer tournaments and stuff. Even very vocal, extremely supportive and everything.
So you mentioned a brother. So tell me about the family. You know, his does he have any other siblings, or was that it, just a brother?
Yes. Yeah. He has an older sister and two older brothers. And then he has two younger sisters and a younger brother.
Wow, big family.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And you said he had I believe you said he had a son. Can you talk about
He
would
did.
that be your grandson?
Yes. He did not get to meet his son. His girlfriend was pregnant when he was murdered. Uh, but he's the blessing that all of us never knew we needed. Nothing will ever fix the loss of Donovan, but the smiles that his son is also named Donovan gives us is it can brighten up some of the worst days. He's a character.
I'm picturing like a little mini reincarnation.
He really is. He has his mannerisms. He has like the way he holds his hands and his feet. Like he is very much his father's twin. It's one of the things that most people noticed about my son Donovan was he had thick, long eyelashes, and his son has them.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, okay. So at this time, I'm gonna play a video of you know what the video I'm gonna play of the circumstance, and so I'm gonna allow you to just kind of put your camera on. You know, you can turn your camera off, and then I'll get you back in the studio after the video's done. Okay?
Okay.
So I can show everybody what's going on. All right. All right, you guys. At this time I'm gonna play a video. So sit tight.
Terry, this video really gives us insight into the moments that led up to the shooting, and we do have to warn you, it is intense. Officers are going room to room trying to clear the apartment when they arrive at the room where Donovan Lewis is in bed. An officer opens the door and that fatal shot is fired. We're going to let about 40 seconds of this video play for you and stop it before they go into the room. Again, a warning, this video is very unsettling and difficult to watch.
Here. 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 You want to watch that? Well, I'm just now worried about the back. I don't know. Maybe you can get out that glass one. No. There's two windows. There's one with an AC unit and then the glass one. It's in that dog end. Hands. Come in now. Got somebody. Hands. Hands. Let me see your right hand.
So unfortunately, it didn't work for me not to see it, but
Oh, sorry.
it's all good. The the end of that video is actually after they shot him. Like the blast was the gunshot. There was only one shot fired, and they're screaming hands, 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 and everything, telling him to put his hands in the air after they shot him. That video where it continues, they eventually enter the room because he's unable to walk. They start stripping his clothes off. They're flipping him around on the bed, trying to look for a weapon. They discover a vape underneath his body, but like that he was naked at one point, and then they're trying to get cuffs on him and everything. Like, it's ridiculous. But he they're screaming at him, and at one point while they're like wrestling him around on the bed, he's not fighting them. He is limp. And they're saying, stop resisting, you know, the typical code words that they shout out to quote unquote give validity to what they're doing, you know, like, but you can tell he's not resisting. It's his own body weight.
Right. Yeah.
So after that, they're standing around talking in his room, and that was his bedroom, and they're talking in his room, talking about, should we move him? And then somebody's like, yes. And then so they carry him out, and this is officers, not paramedics. They carry him out, and they drop him on steps outside of his apartment as they're carrying him down the steps. And then they get him down to the ground level. And this is like, about 6 minutes. they're not providing any type of aid to him at this point. They moved him. I'm a trained CPR instructor, and like one of the things that you teach people is you don't move anyone who's injured until a professional arrives, and police are not considered professionals when it comes to a gunshot wound. So they chose to carry him out, dropping him. Like there was no pressure put on the wound or anything for about 6 minutes is what we've timed.
Wow. Yeah, that's can we kind of go back some and tell me what led up to the police being there in the first place?
So it's there's more than one part to it. Um, their version of the story is that they were there to serve a felony warrant on a gun charge. Um, they also said that there was an altercation in his apartment. This is all what they're reporting to the news. Um, and one of my daughters was watching the news and like calling. I was on scene at that point. Um, and I'm outside of the perimeter of the quote unquote crime scene, and she's reporting to us what they're saying. In all actuality, what they were actually there for was a misdemeanor warrant. It's called a habeas corpus, and what that means is that he did not show up to court on a gun charge, but long before they ever went to go serve that warrant, the gun was proven to be someone else's and had already been dealt with through the courts. So the only thing that was outstanding is just his failure to appear at the trial.
So can we talk about that some? How was do you happen to know how, I'm gonna call it miscommunication, but I think it was, more devious than that. But how was there a miscommunication with his charges such that the police probably came ready to deal with somebody who had a felony, and that wasn't even the case? So can you
Correct.
talk about that some?
So in Ohio, um, Ohio is notorious for not clearing. Let's say you have a warrant for your arrest because of an unpaid ticket or something like that. Ohio is notorious for not clearing the warrant after the ticket's been paid, or in this case, they did not amend the original charge. So what happened is Donovan was the passenger in a car that the driver took off running, and Donovan was in the passenger seat. After they processed the scene and went to go shut off the car, they realized there was a gun under the passenger seat. Because the car was not in Donovan's name or the driver's name, they told Donovan that they're going to have to charge him with the gun until they can, look into it further. So they ran the prints and it came back to the driver. Donovan's prints were never on the gun. He even told him, like, I didn't even know it was there. And all of that had been resolved before they went to go serve this warrant. They had a task force that they were enforcing violent crimes, warrants for violent crimes is what they called it, I think, or felony crimes. Had they done their due diligence and updated the system or looked into just, like what the current status was, it would have shown that it was a misdemeanor. But they took the felony and ran with it and entered his apartment as though he had a gun. There was no weapons found in his apartment at all. There was no drugs, no weapons. They pulled out patches on the walls, like if you have drywall and you patch it, they pulled out patches out of the walls looking for something to cover them, and there was nothing in his entire apartment.
Man, goodness. So just watching that video, I mean, I've seen several videos like this, and it's just, there wasn't even time to really assess what's going on. So, for the cop to pull a gun and shoot a gun, I mean, he could have stepped out of the way, called into the room, a lot of other things that could have been done. So I'm looking at this as just, and I'm going to ask you what you think, but was this just a cop who was incompetent?
Absolutely. He was reckless. I mean, there's so many levels to things that went wrong that day. But number one, the officer that shot him his name is Ricky Anderson. He's also was the handler of the dog. By nature of his job, he is not to have a gun out. His only job is to handle the dog. So the fact that he had his gun out and handling the dog shot my son. And if I don't know if the video you showed isn't one of the better ones that I've seen, where you can see that he kind of, I wouldn't say shot around the corner, but his angle was, he didn't have a direct line of sight. The officer that was to his left had a straight shot on to where they opened the door to my son's room, and he did not fire.
Oh, so yeah, so that's to me, that's a clear case of incompetence. I've seen that several times before where one cop will react a certain way and the other one doesn't. I mean, that tells you everything. It tells you a lot.
Yeah. And after watching the entirety of the video from the moment they arrived to his apartment complex till after he was shot, the officer that was to the left, I would venture to say, was way more cocky in the way that he was walking around the scene. At one point, somebody said, "What's his name?" And the officer who didn't shoot said, "I don't know." And I'm like, how do you not know if you're there to serve a warrant?
Right.
They're singing, they're burping into their mics. Like, they were totally relaxed and just showing up like, let's get this done kind of thing. So, their other escape word that they use is that they feared for their life, but they were so nonchalant and, I would say inappropriate for if it to be such a dangerous situation. The way that they approached the scene does not match what they claim.
Yeah. Right. And so can we go back to so they had a felony warrant, and so that put them on the edge already. And was the felony warrant for just a gun or for something else?
He never had a felony warrant. Like, he never had that. It was a misdemeanor.
Oh, I thought it was okay.
They reported it as a felony.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah,
And
so he had a
did
misdemeanor.
have another charge for domestic violence that the mother of his son had called the police and said that he had pushed her. But he never got to make it to court, so we don't know what would have happened with that. But that was the other thing that was outstanding, but they never mentioned that in the beginning.
Yeah, well, with those two charges, you wouldn't think you have to shoot anybody. I'm just trying to figure out it's not even making common sense. It's not.
He was asleep in his room. You
Right.
didn't get to see that in the video that you showed, but he was asleep and he was getting up. And so when he was getting up, his right hand was going up in the air because he was showing them his hand, and his left hand was pushing his body up. So I don't know anybody that can shoot through a mattress, and his palm was open on the right hand. So I don't know.
So let me ask you this question. Was there anyone else in the house, or was he there by himself?
Oh, no, there was two other young men that were there in the house earlier in the video that they had to coax out because they told them they were afraid to open the door. They were all sleeping there, so it took them a while to answer. And once they did, they told the police, "You can open the door. I'm afraid." They eventually opened the door for the police. They were both handcuffed immediately and put off to the side just outside of the doorway. And so these boys were witness to his murder. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't actually see it, but they were there, unable to do anything about it. They were, they were forced to be part of that.
So, and this is, I'm not blaming them, but I'm just wondering, did anybody say, hey, our buddy's in the other room, he's sleeping, or
Well,
anything of that nature?
No. And when they were asked, they were like, not sure. Like, they all went to sleep at different times, and apparently,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember that part of the story. Because I mean, for anyone who's been through this type of trauma, like, you get like a brain fog, like, on things. So I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe one of the boys said, I don't know, I was asleep on the couch. So he didn't know if Donovan was still in the house or he had left.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes sense. No, that makes sense.
And
Okay.
it was 2:30 in the morning when all this happened, mind you.
Wow. And this was, yeah, go ahead.
It might not have been clear-headed either. I don't know. The only person that was drug tested was Donovan, not even the officer that shot him. So there's that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you this question. I don't know if you have data for this, but I like to ask this question because I think it's relevant. But do you happen to know, like, the pedigree or history of that officer? Like, is he just one of those officers that's, not suitable for the job anyway?
Oh yeah, he'd already had. So there was, of all the officers that were there, he, I believe, had the longest tenure, but he also had the highest a number of complaints for excessive use of force. I believe the number's 54 accusations. Now, keep in mind, they're investigated and, founded or unfounded by the police. And so there were situations where they upheld the complaint, and then there was others where it was unfounded. But the fact that he had 54 in comparison to, I think the next one, I maybe had like, I don't know, 5 or something, like, it was a big difference. The officer that murdered my son had already been fired once and was hired back through the police union for theft in office because he was turning in overtime for, like, guarding a store that he wasn't actually working. He also had another instance where he was accused of sexual harassment while he was providing security at another facility. He had shown who he was multiple times. They didn't get rid of him.
Yeah. So in my book, I write about the fact that officers can, they can have disciplinary complaints, they can kill people, they can do all kinds of things, and then they just get a transfer to another station. You said he was fired once. So was he fired from a particular station and went to another station, or did he go to a different town?
No, he was still Columbus Police Department here in Ohio. It was the same department. The FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the police union here in Columbus, got him his job back through arbitration. So he was rehired for, I don't know what findings they'd had, but they got him his job back at the same department that he was fired from. He never switched to any other department in Central Ohio. The other thing about it that we all find very interesting is that no one can give us the exact time frame, but officers can request that they archive their like performance reviews or their complaints at a certain point. So we don't have access to what's archived, even with like public records requests. But the fact that he has 54 that weren't archived, I would say there's a high probability that there's more. That's just what we know about.
Holy cow. So let me ask you this, because I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask you because you've been through this. But with the arbitration, are the victim families part of that process, or is it just the
No,
police?
no. And this was his original crime that he was fired for, was like a quote unquote victimless crime. Like he didn't murder someone. And so there wouldn't have been anyone other than the store that
Right.
was paying him for fraudulent time. But even then, he was active duty when he murdered my son, and he was allowed to retire in bad standing while he has a pending case. So no, we weren't asked if that was okay.
So I don't know if you have any details on that, because that sounds kind of shifty. Retire in bad standing.
It
So
absolutely is, because it doesn't mean anything. They still get their gun, like all of these things. Until he's found guilty, there's really no penalty. Retiring in bad standing is like, I was not in the military, but it sounds to me very much like military, like honorable discharge versus dishonorable discharge. You're still discharged. You know what I
right.
mean? Like, that maybe there's something that he doesn't have access to, but I'm unaware of what difference that makes.
Yeah. So I have to do some research on that, because I'm curious if, or maybe somebody who retires in bad standing, do they still get their pension? Do they still get
Oh yeah,
their?
he still gets his pension. That part I'm sure about.
Oh my, what is going on? So what does it?
He's not the only officer that was allowed to retire with a pending murder charge and has their pension.
That's absolutely ridiculous, because in a normal people, if you get released from a job, there's all kind of things that you don't get to get anymore.
Well, keep in mind they allowed him to retire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. That's
wasn't
another
fired. There was nothing that was done here in Columbus, which is Franklin County, Ohio. Columbus Police Department and the FOP, there's this whole process of how they come up with the rules that apply to officers. And forgive me, but one of the things that I have said is that the FOP is probably the biggest gang in the world. Like, they support their officers no matter what they've done. They never admit guilt or responsibility. So they go to court, they profess their innocence. Even when they're murdered, they make reasons why. Like when they're found guilty, they make up reasons why. It wasn't fair. It wasn't this or what. They never accept responsibility. I've had the opportunity to go and speak to the police department and in different capacities. And one of the things that I said to them directly is that, I work in healthcare. We have quality assurance, quality control.
right.
We have ways to report something that's unsafe or someone who is not behaving the way that they should, like racism or other things. There's a way to report that. You can report it anonymously or not, but there is an avenue to report so that they can make things better and get rid of the people who aren't living up to the standards that our hospital holds. Whereas the police department doesn't have that, and often an officer who speaks out is then later, I hate to say blacklisted because of all the connotations that go with it, but they're reprimanded. They are treated differently, and eventually most of them are ousted or leave because it becomes an unbearable work situation. So there's nothing in place to make officers make other officers be responsible for how they behave, how they act, and what they do.
Yeah, and that's at that's in my book. That's at a systemic level, because if you think about some of the other large organizations such as airlines, right? They have an FAA, which is a federal oversight organization. Then you think about food and drugs and medical. You got the FDA, right? Now
Mhm.
now you go into law enforcement and policing. You got nothing. You got internal affairs. Just by the nature of the name, that's a problem. Internal? What?
So here's another thing. In Ohio, our percentage of police involved shootings, whether it's a shooting or murder, is higher than almost anywhere else. I think it is the highest, or it's the second highest in the entire country. And because of that, they created the BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigations. But guess what? It's police officers. So they have the Internal Affairs, Inspector General, and they have BCI, and all of them are some version of an officer who investigate these things. We do have, they call it a citizen review board, I believe is what it's called. Uh, I am not knocking the people who wanted to be part of that, hoping that it would result in change. But in my opinion, it's just another way to say that they're doing something without doing something. So the Civilian Review Board, that's what it's called. I'm sorry. They reviewed Donovan's case and recommended that it be, that it go further. It be looked into further. I mean, that part's a no-brainer, but that's what they said. So in August of this year, it'll be 4 years since my son was murdered. We've yet to make it to a court. We have a criminal case against the officer who murdered my son. We have a civil case against the city for wrongful death and reckless homicide of my son. And then we have a federal case that's pending. Well, we have a court date set for, I think, January 11th, and that is against the city and their lack of action. They've called in the DOJ, Department of Justice, for reviews, and they've said that they need to make changes, and no changes have been made yet. So they know that there's a problem, but yet do nothing to fix it or change how they're policing. I mean, it's the story as old as time, but it's the whole point that why did you ask for the review if you weren't going to do anything with the information that was provided? So they got, like, at one point they got the review, got the results, and then turned around and asked for another review. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's typical, right?
mhm.
It's some activity, right? But nothing's
Yeah,
getting done. Nothing getting done.
it's a waste of time is what it is. Yes.
Right, right. And you mentioned changes. So would it be when you said changes? Do you happen to know if any of the changes are relative to what happened to Donovan, or just in
Well,
general?
there's a lot of things that could have prevented what happened to my son. Um, Currently, there's a memo. It is not an ordinance. It's not a law. It's not a rule that since his murder, if they want to serve a warrant in the middle of the night, they have to get two, don't get me to lying about what rank, but two supervising officers to sign off on it in order for them to serve a warrant in the middle of the night. Now, that does not take into consideration, like, if there's an active threat, those kind of things. But like in my son's case, he was in the apartment. There was no 911 call. There was nothing that alerted them to go to the house. There was no concerns of violence or danger in that moment. So reasonably, that could have waited until the morning. They could
Yeah.
have knocked on the door, got him to respond, those kind of things. There was nothing that made it a necessity to do it at 2:30 in the morning.
What, go ahead.
That's number one. Number two is them reviewing charges before they go out to serve warrants to see if there's been anything that's updated or any corrections, or if the status of a warrant has changed in some way. They would have easily seen that it was a misdemeanor, not a felony. And then there's other things that they did, like the officer that murdered my son was a part of the canine unit. he came from another situation where there was a gun involved. So he was already amped when he arrived on scene.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There was no debriefing, there was no downtime from when he left one scene with a lot of, emotion and concerns, safety concerns, to arriving to where my son was at. If that was not allowed, I believe that that could have possibly changed the outcome as well. I mean, there's other things that they did wrong, but wouldn't have saved his life. Like, they're on body cam talking about, let me guess, black or white. You already know. Oh, black.
Wow.
Another one, there was a gentleman who was killed by a Columbus police officer who, there was a law created in his name. It's called Andre's Law for Andre Hill. That law requires officers to provide aid until a paramedic or ambulance is able to take over providing aid to someone who has been injured. At one point, keep in mind, they did not provide aid immediately. At one point, one of the officers says, I called it in so they can't say we didn't provide aid.
So they're already putting together a defense for not
Them
doing that
telling
job.
him to stop resisting while he's mortally wounded. We didn't know that at the time, but from what I understand from an autopsy, he was bleeding out internally. And they still took the time to strip him, to flip him around, to carry him out, to drop him on the steps, to carry him down further, and then still have to call for equipment to try and provide aid to him.
Yeah, that's a standard thing I've seen, in this space, is that it gets on it's really bothersome. I don't know why they haven't changed the protocol, but the assumption that a person who's already shot is still dangerous. Why putting handcuffs on a person and still subduing them, and they're in a bad situation, they're critically wounded or just wounded.
They had to ask somebody to take the cuffs off him to provide him aid. He was handcuffed when they dropped him on the steps.
Yeah, and so then look at this. If we know that's the standard protocol, because he wasn't dangerous. I mean, I don't understand. Like, the whole thing just makes no sense. If this wasn't you weren't going after a felon. It's not a felon.
Even if he was a felon, he did nothing. That's my thing. Like, I don't care if he really was a felon. He's not. But if he was a murderer, he did nothing to warrant what happened to him in that moment. And here's where it gets really, really ugly, is as part of the judicial part of after the fact, they want to victim blame. They want to pick apart families and find everything, every skeleton bone that they think that they can find about someone, and blame us for why something happened. But the reality is, I don't care what you find. You didn't know any of that in the moment you made the decision to murder my son. You knew none of that.
And you could, I might be a little biased, but I think I'm a good judge of character. I look at Donovan, looks like a good kid.
He was rotten. I'm not gonna lie, but Donovan was one of those don't start none, won't be none. He wasn't the kind that was, if somebody needed help, he was going to help you. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times there's stories he told me, and then since his murder, people have told me the other side of the story. And for all the times as a mom, I was angry at him for getting in fights or things at school. Almost every single time, he was sticking up for someone else.
Got it.
So I'm not saying he was this perfect angel, but his heart was pure. He loved with everything. He would have given the shirt off of his back to someone to make sure that they didn't go without, because he knew he would get another one at another time. The two young men that were in the apartment with him that night, he wasn't supposed to have anybody staying there, but because he had a roof over his head, he provided a roof for somebody else.
Yeah. So he was doing a good deed.
I'm just saying, like, anybody that knows him knows that if you were his friend or his family, or he saw that something was wrong happening to you, he would have stepped in. He wasn't one to sit back and be like, not my problem. You know, like if he had something to eat and you were hungry, he was going to share with you.
Yeah. Sound like a good guy.
He was a great-hearted person. Like I said, you know, none of us are perfect, and if all of us are judged on who we were at 16, 17, 18, 20 when he was
Oh,
murdered, you know,
yeah.
even these officers, who they were at, 16 to 20 is not who they portray or who they have become now. And the reality is, as human beings, you're supposed to be better when you're older. He never got that chance. He will never have that chance. He was doing well when he was murdered. Um, it's easy for them to point fingers. And the bottom line is, if you didn't murder him, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know, I mean, I'm not you and I, but them.
Yeah, no. Yeah. No, I understand it. I was just going to say that, for all that is worth, you know, a person who, gets into trouble and does things, that doesn't mean they deserve to be killed.
Absolutely
Okay.
not. There's
Right.
nothing he ever did in his entire life that would have gotten him life in jail, a murder charge. There was nothing that would have got him life in prison, the death penalty, none of these things.
Right.
So an officer should not be able to make that choice for him. He should have had his day in court, and we would have seen what would have happened after that.
Right. Right. So let me ask you this question. You kind of answered this some, but I want to ask it directly, see if you have anything else. But are you still fighting for justice for Donovan?
Absolutely.
And, and
Absolutely.
and what are your thoughts on how the system failed you and your son?
I mean, I mentioned things where they failed him off the rip, but as a family, an impacted family, here in Ohio, there are situations of white men shooting at officers and being taken into custody without incident.
That's everywhere. That's everywhere.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, even here with the same police department, there are situations where someone fired upon the officers and one died. Two others like escaped initially and were captured. They were charged, sentenced, and in prison within 4 months. Less than a year, let's say. Let's be generous. Less than a year. And here we can't even get to the first round of the court process because they put in continuances, somebody's not available, it just keeps getting moved. There's been times where I was leaving work to go to court and they canceled it. You know, like, it's last minute changes. It's always something, they delay it in favor of the officer. I mean, we already know the court process is stacked against anyone going against an officer, and things from who the judge is to choosing their jury to if they decide to move it to a different county. All of those decisions are made by people who are directly influenced or paid by the same people as the officers. So there's nothing just about the justice system. It's a legal system. One of my friends told me that, and I was like, ever since then, that's the truth. It's a legal system. It's not a just system. And even though like the hashtags that I use for my son are justice for Donovan, justice can't be had because he can't come back. The only thing that we can ask for is accountability for what they've done and change to try and save someone else's family from going through the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me ask you this. After, dealing with this horrific personal loss, do you have any advice for other parents of police brutality victims? Do you have any advice for them, things that they can maybe, lessons learned from you that they can use?
Grief is very different for everyone. There is no right way, wrong way to grieve. All I can say is you have to find a way to not be stuck in the worst part of your grief, because I mean, grief itself, it causes physical damage,
Yeah.
whether it's, panic, anxiety attacks to heart attacks to, cortisol, all of these things. You have to find something to live for, not just the fight. So like for us, um we don't do hardly any holidays the way that we did when Donovan was alive because we're missing him.
Right.
But what we've done is we've turned it into a positive, I guess you could say, in that we volunteer for holidays at community kitchens and things like that, community serves. Um, the first 2 years of Donovan's murder, I stayed home and cried and was miserable. The last 2 years, we've now, Donovan loved his birthday. He loved everyone's birthday. Like that was his thing. So we have changed it that we celebrate his birthday. We celebrate that he lived. Because he has a son, we are creating memories for his son and showing that he was loved. And what we do is do a community serve in different areas of the city that have a higher need, like for food resources and things like that. If we can get other community groups to come out and share resources that can be given to people, it's a benefit for everyone. Raising my kids, we didn't get to do big giant birthday parties. We did birthday dinner and a cake. So on his birthday, we still do his birthday dinner and cake and try and do something for others in the community also.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. And in fact, I was gonna that kind of segue into what I'm gonna ask you now, but you might have already answered it. But I was gonna ask you, how do you remember and honor Donovan? Is there a legacy, such as a movement, a scholarship, or a personal way in which you honor and remember him?
No scholarship or anything like that. Like our family is not set up like that. But at this time, like I would say everything that we do out in the community is in honor of him. Helping others, celebrating his birthday, loving on his son, who would have been the most precious thing in his life. You know, he was excited to become a father. He did not get to know him, but we're raising his son to know that he was loved. There's a website that I need to get better at posting, but I share events there that we have done. I have tried to share like court dates and things like that, but there's a nonprofit in the works, but we don't have it fully running yet. This whole grief part about delayed accountability is taxing. It's heavy. And so to try and venture into something new when we don't even have anything settled from his murder is a lot.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah, it's a lot for you to deal with. I understand. So I wanna right now. I want to say, I'm gonna put a banner up, and if have any, if you have a way to where you can help, have a helping hand, please reach out. Otherwise, you know, Miss Rebecca Duran really, appreciates your support. But there's information scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you have any, if you want to give a donation or just want to, give your, say, hey, we have your back, or, we have your blessings. There's a way you can reach out.
I
Right
would
now,
say sharing information, like his information, would be another thing. Like, um, more people knowing about what's happening for him or anyone else in a similar situation. Like, it's important to all the mothers that I've ever talked to about that their name doesn't just die because someone decided to take them from us.
right. Yeah, no. I mean, because this is no fault of his. He had nothing to do with this. You know. Uh, I really want to thank you for joining People's Society today and sharing your story. Any last words for the viewers, or last thoughts for the viewers?
Unity is how we're going to get through this. Um, Even if you are not directly affected, you have a voice, you have a vote to make changes so that hopefully another family is spared from going through this. Um, just be good humans.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we hope everything goes well for you.
Thank you.
All right. If you lost someone, so once again we want to thank Miss Rebecca Duran for joining us today, and we just want to tell you, if you've lost someone to police violence or societal violence and you want to tell your story, contact the People's Society using the address beneath my name tagline. All right, you can get in touch with us there. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and share our YouTube channel. All right, and we'll see you next time.